What's up guys, Jam here. Today we'll be covering Chapter 3 of Arc 5. Before we get into things, please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future chapter summaries. Chapter 2 of Arc 5 concluded by leaving us on a cliffhanger that Anastasia's camp knows about Puck's disappearance and knows how to return him to Emilia. The stage for Arc 5 has been set as well in Pristella. Chapter 3 opens in Emilia's room. Emilia, feeling bad for not consulting Otto for advice, the Otto neglect continues, recalls the meeting that took place earlier that day. Subaru chuckles and takes a seat next to Emilia, telling her not to worry about Otto panicking as he will always support her and her ideas. However, Subaru mentions he's instead worried about how Anastasia knew of Puck's disappearance and how her camp prepared this far in advance. Emilia, agreeing with Subaru, brings up how Anastasia is the type of person who plans their moves out in advance with little to no risk involved, since Anastasia is a calculated merchant that operates only to benefit herself. Disappointed in herself, Emilia recalls how Joshua took control of the meeting from her, forcing her into a situation where she had to accept the invitation. Anastasia and her faction somehow knew how much Puck meant to Emilia and used that against her. Let me know in the comments who you think leaked it to Anastasia's camp. Subaru, trying to comfort Emilia, reminds her that Anastasia must recognize her as a political rival now, as she sent one of her knight's family members as a messenger. Not to mention, it's safe to assume that Joshua is one of, if not the best negotiator in Anastasia's camp. I find it hard to believe that Anastasia would risk having someone like Mimi handle negotiations with political rivals. Mimi would probably end up causing issues with the rivals and not accomplish anything. Subaru, still not a fan of Julius, mentions how Joshua is way more likable than his brother. Emilia, sighing, asks him if he still has a grudge against Julius after the events at the Capitol. Subaru, muttering to himself, thinks back to the events of the Capitol. He was extremely brash and prideful back then. Subaru wanted to be by Emilia's side and was worried that something would happen to her while he wasn't there. He declared himself Emilia's knight in front of the Knights of Lagunica, the Council, and the royal candidates. His actions offended Julius and the other knights, leading to Julius challenging him to a duel and absolutely humiliating him in front of a large crowd. Subaru, turning towards Emilia, tells her that it's too early for him to forget and laugh at it. He has reflected on his actions back then and wishes that Julius would do the same. With that said, however, I believe Julius has reflected on that time and has moved past it. He had apologized to Subaru for his actions that day and deeply respects his devotion to Emilia. In the loop where Betelgeuse took over Subaru's body and Julius had to kill him, Subaru was begging Julius to kill him, but Julius couldn't bring himself to kill someone that he wanted to be friends with and tried telling Subaru to fight through it. Before killing Subaru, Julius says that one day he'll pay the price for not being able to save him and forcing Ferris to try and kill him. Potentially Subaru didn't hear it because Betelgeuse took over his body entirely at that point. Emilia, disappointed in Subaru, scolds him by saying it's wrong to give shallow apologies and hold grudges. Subaru, not pleased by Emilia's small lecture, frowns and doesn't change his stance. Emilia stares at him, but Subaru looks away. She frowns at Subaru's behavior and then can't help but smile. Emilia, understanding that she can't change Subaru's mind, tells him he is not allowed to fight with Julius if he sees him at Pristella, since Subaru is now her knight and needs to conduct himself in a proper manner. Subaru, agreeing with Emilia, begins looking around the room trying to remember something. It then clicks to him that he doesn't know anything about Pristella. He looks to Emilia, asking if it's known for anything. Emilia, teasing Subaru, tells him that he needs to study more and that Pristella is one of the 5 main cities of Lagunica, built on a massive lake with canals, and it's on the border of Kararagi and Lagunica. This explains why Anastasia is very familiar with the city, as Kararagi is close by. Subaru thinks of the Italian city Venice, as it is also built on water with canals. He tells Emilia that Venice is a floating city similar to Pristella, but she corrects him that Pristella is a Watergate city. This confuses him since he has never heard of a Watergate city before. Since Pristella is in the middle of a massive lake, whenever it rains, the city floods. To circumvent this, the town built walls all around the city and regulates water levels. Subaru, imagining Pristella to be a beautiful and vibrant water city, now pictures it as a watery prison, waiting for disaster to happen. Still not knowing what the reason behind the invitation is, Subaru is suspicious of Anastasia's intentions and mentions it to Emilia. Emilia, unsure of his doubts, asks him to consider trusting people more. Subaru apologizes to her, as he doesn't trust any of the royal candidates or their intentions. I can't blame Subaru for feeling this way, as back in Arc 3 when he was being kicked to the curb by every single one of the candidates aside from Felt, and even then he still doesn't know Felt's true intentions behind running as a royal candidate. She had grown up as a thief and is known to be tricky and deceiving. However, he does trust Reinhardt and Old Man Rom from her faction. Reinhardt has saved Subaru several times without asking anything in return and is always looking to help others in need. Rom has been friendly towards Subaru, but their interactions with one another have been limited. If Felt decides to make Emilia and the rest of her faction an enemy, they stand zero chance against Reinhardt. Subaru does trust Krush, as she's helped him out the most out of the royal candidates and seems genuine. However, she is suffering from amnesia after her battle against the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony. Subaru doesn't know Wilhelm and Ferris's true intentions either. Especially when Krush is in the vulnerable state that she's in currently, they could very well be forcing their agendas onto her. Subaru doesn't think highly of Anastasia. He knows that she is a merchant at heart and will do anything she can to come out on top of any deals or negotiations. Her intentions behind sending the invite and what she gains from inviting Emilia and the others are still unknown. While he knows that Julius practices chivalry, at the end of the day he is loyal to Anastasia and will do what she wants. Subaru thinks very low of Pristella and her faction, as she wants Lagunica for herself and believes the world operates for her benefit. After all, in Arc 3 she tricked Subaru into trying to lick her foot for her help against the witch cult, before throwing him at a door. Not to mention, she used him to get under Emilia's skin at the Capitol by pretending that he was her servant. Subaru has absolutely no reason to like or trust Pristella. While Al is also not from this world and may be from Japan as well, he is loyal to Pristella and we don't know his motives for helping her. Subaru, worried about being in Anastasia's debt, shares his concerns with Emilia as they don't know how she would want them to repay her and how she knew that Emilia was looking for a colorless spellstone for Puck. Even Emilia, confused on how Anastasia found out about Puck's absence, recalling that she had shown Puck off to everyone in the capital to prevent others from finding out that he is limited. Subaru, thinking about Puck's return, recalls that it would make Emilia stronger in combat and make it more believable that they took down the Great Rabbit. Unfortunately, the achievement of taking down the Great Rabbit back in Arc 4 is not recognized by the public, as there were no witnesses to back it up or any corpses of the rabbits. They couldn't show off Al-Shamak, the spell that Beatrice used to send the rabbits into another dimension, as it was an ancient spell and she doesn't possess the mana to do it again. Subaru, angered as he remembers how the rabbits caused him a lot of pain and suffering, he was eaten alive by them, torn apart by them, and left for dead by them, only to be kissed by a mentally broken Emilia. Emilia, being the positive person that she is, tells Subaru to focus on the fact that the rabbits can no longer hurt anyone else, and that should be enough. Subaru, feeling pathetic compared to Emilia, as she is selfless and always willing to help people out in need, even if it's inconvenient to her. This has been true throughout every loop Subaru has seen Emilia in, like how she first helped him out as Satella when he first arrived at Lagunica, or when the little girl lost her mom at the bazaar. While Subaru is willing to help people out in need just like Emilia, he can't do it all the time. When he's angered or in distress, he has chosen to ignore others' well-beings for his own needs. A perfect example is his actions towards Emilia in the capital. Emilia, trying to comfort Subaru, reminds him of his accomplishments of fighting the White Whale and defeating Betelgeuse. Subaru denies it, as he believes that he barely did anything while others did the majority of the work. Emilia, continuing to comfort Subaru, tells him he's done so much in a short time span, ridding the world of 2 of the 3 great mob beasts, and he's done more than she could ever ask for. Subaru, agreeing with her, hopes the last one doesn't show up. Emilia has encountered the venom of the Black Snake, both when she was a child and when she was an adult. She has seen the destruction of it firsthand. I also believe we will 100% see the Black Snake in a future arc. I would be genuinely shocked if ReZero ended and we never saw the actual true form of the snake. Emilia, quickly changing the topic, asks Subaru who they should bring with them to Pristella, and considers consulting Roswaal about it. Subaru, finding the subject change odd, tells her it's fine and that they should bring Garfield, Otto, and even though it's unlikely, either Petra or Frederica to come with them. Emilia recalls that Roswaal is busy meeting with other lords and Petra has to accompany him there for her maid training. Petra was upset about accompanying him, as she's hated Roswaal ever since the events of the sanctuary. She's even put dirty water from her washcloth into his tea. Frederica will be going with Roswaal and Petra to keep an eye on the both of them and to continue Petra's training. Ram has to stay behind and oversee the mansion, making it unlikely for either of the three maids to accompany them to Pristella. Subaru realizes that they won't be able to take any of the maids. Emilia, trying to help, asks Subaru if it's okay for Petra to go alone, since Anne, the heir of the Millord mansion, and her butler Clind will be at the meeting. Subaru is unsure of how he feels about Clind. Clind is a powerful butler of the Millord mansion. The Emilia camp stayed there while the new Roswaal mansion was being set up. Clind was the person who taught Subaru the basics of parkour and coached him. Just to give you an idea of how insane Clind is, he completed the parkour course that Garfield created without breaking a sweat or messing up his clothes. Subaru, changing the topic, tells Emilia not to worry about who'll be staying in the mansion and be worried about being more careful going forward. Emilia, agreeing with him, mentions that she feels bad for accepting the invite without discussing it first, and that she should apologize to Otto. Subaru, knowing Otto all too well, tells Emilia that Otto doesn't care about his dignity, but he does hold on to things, so he'll lie to him that he yelled at Emilia so hard that she cried. The Otto abuse continues once again. Emilia laughs and thanks Subaru. Emilia touches the blue crystal pendant that hangs on her chest, where Puck currently resides. He's sleeping until he can be in a colorless gem strong enough to contain a great spirit. Emilia, thinking about being reunited with Puck, begins mentioning that there are so many things that she wants to ask him, but then stops herself. Subaru is confused by Emilia's actions, but doesn't question her about it. Then says, "You better get here, cat spirit. I got a mountain of complaints for you." I wonder if Subaru is going to grill Puck for not telling Emilia where babies come from. We cut to a drunk Otto slamming a glass onto the table. Otto is down horrendous right now, drinking away all the abuse, I assume. Otto had been complaining to Garfield while drinking for several hours after the meeting had ended. While he was complaining, Subaru walks in and takes a seat next to Garfield. Subaru, looking at the glass of milk that Garfield is drinking, is reminded of how he's trying to establish that no one under the age of 20 is allowed to drink in the mansion. A major reason for the rule is that one time while Otto was drunk, he peer pressured Garfield into taking a sip of alcohol. Garfield wasn't able to hold it all, and he no longer has a desire to drink since then. If only Garfield didn't skip health class in middle school. Subaru, turning to the drunk Otto, tells him not to sulk as Emilia is sorry for deciding without consulting him and that she knows that she should have discussed it first. Otto, fueled by anger and alcohol, fires back explaining how the whole process of negotiation was ignored and that Emilia accepted their offer and played into the opponent's hand. Subaru knows he's right and does agree with him. He tries to calm Otto down, but he's lost in the sauce and snaps at him. Subaru, annoyed at the drunk Otto taking shots at him, fires back at him that he actually sounds like an internal affairs guy after resisting the position at the start. Garfield chimes in, telling Otto it's not a big deal since it's just an invitation. Otto snaps back, saying it's amazing how little they've changed in a year. Subaru and Garfield look at each other and high five. Subaru, taking a look at Otto, remembers why he was the best person for the title of Internal Affairs Minister for the Emilia faction. He's smart, has the experience of a merchant, works with Roswaal directly, calculating, and most of all, a punching bag for the group. The trio of Subaru, Otto, and Garfield continue to banter for a while. Subaru, remembering why he came downstairs, asks them if they're going to Pristella. Garfield, proud of being relied on for his strength, confirms he's going. Subaru, looking at Otto, asks him if he's serious about coming. Otto, annoyed at Subaru's question, snaps at him, telling him of course he would since he can't trust him or Emilia to make decisions that wouldn't hurt them later on. I can't blame Otto for feeling that way. Emilia is still very young and innocent, so it wouldn't be hard for someone to take advantage of her. Subaru, while not naive and can be clever in his own way, has very little experience when it comes to negotiating. He wasn't able to convince any faction to help him against the witch cult until several loops later when he knew exactly what they wanted. Otto mentions that Pristella is the birthplace of Hoshin of the Waste, the founder of Kararagi. Since the city is on the border of Kararagi and Lagunica, it is a popular place among tourists and merchants. As a merchant himself, Otto feels obligated to visit the town. Subaru, mocking Otto, mentions that he thought Otto had given up on being a merchant. Otto, already wasted in how passionate he is about being a merchant, took great offense to this. He angrily fires back at Subaru, telling him he is deeply mistaken if he thinks he'll stay an internal affairs minister until the day he dies, and that his goal is to be a successful merchant with his own shop, and that he is only here as it will help him achieve that. Garfield chimes in that it will probably lead him to his death. The trio begin bantering with one another again, and Otto drinks some more. Even though Subaru knows that they mock and make fun of Otto often, he knows that they can't function without him. Otto knows this as well, otherwise Emilia would be making mistakes like accepting offers from political rivals blindly all the time. Otto also wouldn't abandon them, as he still cares for Subaru and the others. Subaru, tired from the events of today, tells Garfield that he's going to head out for the night and asks him if he's doing the same. Garfield declines as he will keep an eye on Otto to make sure nothing happens while he is drunk. He also wants to finally beat him at this world's version of chess, Shantraj. Before heading upstairs to sleep, Subaru tells Garfield not to stay up too late, otherwise it will stunt his growth. Garfield, who had been following his advice, mentions that he hasn't grown a single inch in a year. Subaru jokingly tells Garfield it's because Frederica absorbed his growth. Garfield, being the gullible kid he is, believes Subaru and yells, "Fuck you, sis," in the middle of the night. Ram is no doubt about to come downstairs and slap him with the slipper for waking up the entire mansion. Subaru goes upstairs to the women's bedrooms. He knocks on one of the doors, asking if he can come in. He opens the door. The lights are off as the room is pitch black. Subaru, wishing there was some sort of human presence in the room, reminisces about a time Emilia and Beatrice were in here with him, where the two of them were complimenting and coddling him. Subaru then reflects on his current relationship with Emilia. He has already confessed his true feelings to her, and he's even kissed her. But Emilia is too immature for their relationship to transition into a fully romantic one. Even he doesn't think he's mentally ready to handle a romantic relationship either. However, according to Subaru, in 2 or 3 years he'll be 100% ready for it. Subaru pulls a chair next to the bed and sits down. A blue-haired girl is fast asleep on the bed. She's been in a deep slumber for over a year at this point. This girl was none other than Rem. Subaru begins telling Rem about the events of today, a tradition he's kept up with since she fell into this comatose state. And that sums up Chapter 3 of Arc 5. This was a solid follow-up to the lighthearted, goofy Chapter 2. Right now Tappe is setting the stage for Arc 5 and building everything up. This chapter had some serious character and plot developing moments, such as when we were shown what Subaru currently thinks of the other factions, and Subaru and Emilia's conversation with one another, where we even got hints of potential foreshadowing. Emilia had mentioned there was something that she wanted to ask Puck, but then stopped herself. I wonder what that could be. Could it be that she wants to know why he blocked her memories? Or does she want to know where babies come from? I believe and hope it will be a plot twist, maybe being related to why Emilia has a connection to Satella. The third and final great mob beast, the Black Snake, was also brought up in their conversation. While Subaru hopes they will never encounter it, I'm willing to bet my entire college savings that they will. Subaru isn't getting off that easy, not to mention Emilia wants to free the people from her village. Some of the snake's venom could still be frozen, as we saw in the Frozen Bond OVA. Getting to see Subaru's true thoughts on all of the other factions and their leaders was very insightful, as it was never revealed to us up until now. I can't blame people for thinking that Subaru thought highly or may have trusted the other factions after he left on really good terms with both the Krush and Anastasia factions. Although Subaru's feelings of doubt are justified, he had been set up by some of them before, and at the end of the day, they are still Emilia's political rivals and they do not intend on letting her have the throne. Chapter 3 also had its goofy and fun moments with Subaru, Otto, and Garfield going back and forth with one another, or Emilia and Subaru bantering with each other. Several questions that were brought up in the last chapter still aren't resolved. The reason behind Anastasia's invite for the Emilia faction, and if any other factions are invited, remains unknown. The reason why Anastasia knows that Puck is missing is also still unknown. Whether or not Puck may or may not be coming back in this arc remains a mystery. We were also given more information on what took place during the time skip between Arc 4 and Arc 5, such as 2 new characters were introduced into this chapter, and Rosa Milord and her butler Clind. We don't know much about them aside from the fact they housed the Emilia camp until the new Roswell mansion was finished, and Clind taught Subaru parkour. I hope we will see these 2 in the story going forward, and aren't wasted or forgotten. Through Emilia and Otto, more information about Pristella was revealed to Subaru. I'm glad that we got more information on Pristella, as it will be the main location in which this arc will take place. The last thing this chapter leaves us on is that Rem is still in a coma. Will she wake up during this arc, or will she remain sidelined to allow Emilia to get with Subaru? Alright, now to get into 3 comments of the last video's comment section. The first comment comes in from SpiderWill16. They said, "We all think it's Pandora or Hector who's the final boss, but really it's going to be Otto, getting revenge for all these verbal beatings." I mean, I think you might be onto something. Otto's been abused far too many times. It's about time he takes revenge on Subaru and the others. But memes aside, I don't think Otto takes the jabs too personally. The next comment comes in from Fafo Nero. They said, "Honestly, I love the small off-topic references in the video. Also, quick question, do you read the novel on Witch Cult translations? I'm glad you enjoy the small references I make in the videos. I use them to enhance the viewing experience for you guys." Also, to answer your question, yes I do. They do great work, and I recommend you guys read the chapters on your own if you haven't already. The final comment comes in from Alex Haima. I apologize if I said that wrong. They wrote, "All my Arc 5 readers know the moment where this arc truly starts." I do know what you're referring to, and I can't wait to cover it on the channel. I also look forward to seeing some of your reactions to it as well. With that being said, if you have any new theories, predictions for the next chapter, or feedback for me, I'd love to hear about them in the comment section down below. I will be reading all of the comments, then responding to and discussing 3 to 4 comments in the next video. I plan on covering each chapter of Arc 5 and all future arcs. If you don't want to miss out, please consider subscribing. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.
震える心は悲しみを予感し